Hello, everybody. I'm Gillian. Um, I have no idea who knows my work, so I'm going to start off with just a sample of something, and I'll tell you what it is afterwards, so you get a sense of who I am. But you also get something wildly appropriate for today. I'm damned if I know how it all went wrong. I'm going to have to go back through the whole thing chronologically with all the identified moments and all the interpretations and just try to work it out. Not working it out isn't an option, given that the effects are still piling up. To put it in simple terms, did it happen? That single event changed everything. And it stymies me. I've spent years researching it just to get where I am now, being chief handler of the critical project that will help us understand, that will allow us to move on. I ought to have an answer already given those years. What's the problem? And why am I stuck, having to start yet again? I need I need to make this moment a fixed point, a constant, not a variable. Right now, there are too many variables. I need a name. There's no term in English that comes close to summarizing what happened. No formal term and no informal one. It's a change. But calling it the change or even the great change makes the whole thing sound menopausal and whatever deity these people trust knows. I get enough of that in my source material. I can't keep calling it it. Armageddon is too long and ugly. Collapse of all we hold dear is too depressing and too long and not quite right. Damn humans is accurate, but doesn't really describe an event in English, which is a strangely limited language. I might call it fruitcake. So that was, where is it? I have books I prepared before. That's not the introduction of the Year of the Fruitcake. That's a section from the Year of the Fruitcake, which is my last year's new novel. And it's about an alien who is observing humanity and everything changes. So imagine if Keanu Reeves was in Canberra and was female and was perimenopausal, so the whole story changes. Yeah, that's a really good description. There's no way of describing that novel. But I just thought the fruitcake was a good description of this year as well. What I'm going to do with the rest of the reading is give you snippets that introduce you to characters from two of my books. Because North America doesn't know me that well, lucky you, you don't know that I'm mostly liked for my characters. I still can't work out why, but since readers like my characters, I'll introduce you to a couple of them. Well, a few more than a couple. The ones in two quite different books. The first one is The Wizardry of Jewish Women, because I'll be talking about that in a panel on Your Tomorrow and My Tonight. No, it's My Tomorrow as well. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. My time is the Jewish fantasy, the Jewish landscape panel. And it's the first Australian Jewish fantasy novel. I don't know why it took us so long to write one, but it is. So I'll start with that. And then I might read you a bit from my new novel because I can. So I've got to find the reading. Using the same screen for everything without an audience in front of me is actually psychologically really difficult. So here are Ronda and Judith's family from The Wizardry of Jewish Women. I actually chose this novel to read from because the honest reason is because I always wanted to come to NASFiC to see Ronda McIntyre because she was really important to me for a few years, well, for a long time, but I met her online and she did the tech side of the current ebook of Wizardry of Jewish Women, and I'm just missing her. So let me introduce you to Ronda first. In a chat room, there are always silent people. Ronda hated being one of them. She saw a chat room as a community and wanted to do her part. For now, however, she was playing a waiting game and a watching game. She needed to know how many people were haunting her hordes and get some idea about who they were and what they were after. Ronda logged in under several names, all new, all neutral. Ronda took up a hunter stance. Ronda watched and waited. A series of questions flitted through all her favourite places, night after night. The hunters arrived about the time she normally came online and stayed till about an hour past her usual time. She looked at the files documenting her outpourings, and the times corresponded. At least 3 groups or individuals had obviously come to the same conclusions about her working patterns. The other possibility, Ronda reflected, was that she was paranoid. She really wished she was paranoid. After some reflection, Ronda decided she was permitted annoyance. Her weird mind was its own punishment. She didn't need to be pursued around the clock as well, except that, thank goodness, it wasn't around the clock. It was just at her favourite times of day for chat, the lonely times. She was suddenly isolated from real-time conversation with real people when she most needed it. Yes, Ronda was most definitely annoyed. Ronda changed her working day. She moved her chat room sessions to much earlier in the Australian day and used her evenings to log into her blog and talk with her fan fiction friends. She changed her chat aliases. Her new ones sounded as if she'd emerged from an alternate reality where sadomasochism was a common practice. She would probably regret this. She would probably have to invent a whole new set of aliases. She didn't care. Ronda was spitting fire. She'd spent so long building up a tolerable life, and now these Ronda hunters were stealing it. And now a bit of Judith and her family. The minute Judith heard that her father had asked Lenny for her address, she knew what had happened. He's a good guy, Judith thought. He just completely missed what was happening around him. Peter went drinking with him. Peter was a good bloke. Peter kicked and slashed and tried to make my life impermanent. He loved me. He was an engineer. And all of these statements about Peter are equally true. Plus there was Nick. Dad had been nagging Belinda to nag Judith about letting a poor child know his father. He wouldn't tell Judith directly, though. That would have entailed speaking to his daughter. It made Judith so weary to find this out. Deep in her heart, something hopeful had faded. This was one child who might never speak to her father again. He could have asked. And the funny thing is, she remembered savagely, that I'd always planned that Nick would meet Peter. They have their rights. Nick knew that Peter and I had quarrelled big time and I didn't want to see him, but the minute he wanted to meet his father, he should let me know and I would arrange it. I was surprised at my courage when I said this to him, but say it, I did. I repeat it from time to time. Sometimes Judith caught Nick looking across the dinner table at her, his eyes large with compassion. Usually it was when Judith's fears twitched into the way she slammed down the potatoes or the way she sat on the edge of the chair. There was a pattern to it, twitchy fears. A political monologue. She was passionate about the needs of abused women, and she never saw how much her own children noticed. Those eyes would follow Judith's twitches, and Nick would make her cups of tea until they quietened down. Judith admitted to herself that she had her fears, little fears, insidious fears, infections Peter left in her life. She thought perhaps Nick had guessed some. That was why she was shocked that her father still thought she was a liar. He could have rung me, Judith thought. He could have rung me and asked, "Are you stopping Nick from seeing his father?" You need a bit more of Judith, and you need it in her own voice, the whole thing. I should apologize in advance for Judith's voice. "Hi," said Belinda, and I suddenly realized that brightness was a family trait. Niece and aunt are a matched pair. I should hire them out to the electricity grid. "Zoe said you were going to tell me something." I couldn't help if my voice sounded suspicious. I was trapped in a sea of overwhelming family illumination. "Firstly, I asked Zoe to sing to me. Zoe sings quite beautifully and I adore her song. It takes me right back to you pretending to be a Sontaran and wanting to kill me." "I still want to kill you," I reassured her. "Can't think why," my sister said innocently, "when you're the one refusing to answer the phone." "Just don't assume I'm married," I begged. "If anyone else calls me Mrs. this week, I'll go round the bend." "You're already there, and it's happening to me too, and I never was married, so it's even more of an insult." "So why aren't you reacting to it?" "Because I am an ineffably nice person," my insufferably sugary sister informed me infuriatingly sweetly. "Besides, I have it sorted out." "How?" I put on my best teacher's voice and say that no one by that name lives here. If they insist and ask for someone else, I say, I have a policy of not donating money or listening to business offers from anyone who thinks I'm a male adjunct and not a person in my own right. That sounds like something I'd say, I objected. I know, my sister, in laughing, toyed with the idea of an early death. I use your exact tone of voice. I could do that. I felt very grudging. Don't beg, Belinda. I have a better strategy. What is it? Despite my voice sounded interesting. Damn it, I wanted to sulk. You have Zoe. Yes, now she was scaring me. I have Zoe. Get her to answer the phone very honestly. Sorry, Mummy isn't married anymore, and she doesn't want to talk to you if you think she is, but I can sing you my favorite song. She'll do it too, I had to laugh. She'll thoroughly enjoy it. My mood shattered, and shards of laughter fell everywhere. Belinda, one day I will kill you, you know. Judith, one day I will haunt you and you have killed me, you know. Did you ring for anything in particular, I had to ask? Mainly to chat and to see how things are. You know, double-checking that life is stable again and all that. But partly because I put a box of stuff in the post to you and I wanted you to know that it contains nothing poisonous. What is it? Just a few things from recipes of great-grandma, she said airily. You needed a care package. You weren't due for a big sulk. My waistline doesn't need a care package. It was the best repartee I could deliver, putting gloom back in my voice. Have one piece of each thing and feed the rest of the kids, was her advice. Actually, they'll love it, I admitted. There's nothing worse than having two children who adore homemade cakes when your favourite place to cook is the local bakery. How did Belinda become so beautifully domesticated? How did I fail at almost everything I've tried? Lynn, I feel a bubble bath coming on, I said firmly. One of those moods then. You want to be unjoyous, she said, still annoying. If I can't cure it, then I'll leave you to endure it. Damn her toenails, I couldn't hear it, but I just know, she smiled. And I bet it was a charming and supportive smile. Damn all her toenails through 3 hells and back. We said our farewells and hung up, and all the way through, me running a nice hot bath, Zoe doined the Doctor Who theme. And one more bit about Ronda, because I can't leave you without a bit more about Ronda. Someone anonymous was asking about the prescribed books in the Bibliothèque Nationale de France. Ronda explained what they were and when they were set up, and that she herself had consulted something entirely boring there. This led to 2 discussions, one inevitably on censorship and the other on how to get a look at books in places like that. Ronda wrote in the censorship discussion, "We self-censor all the time. Not a day goes by without us deciding what we say to someone else or silencing the thoughts in ourselves we don't like. For me, it's not at all surprising that a society like that in the French Enlightenment might have censorship. Sharp censorship, acute censorship, dangerous censorship." Her post was largely ignored. This was a pity because she loved her turn of phrase. It belonged to a Thursday in Petit Grain. Pity it was the tail end of Thursday, and everything smelled faintly of forests. Maybe she should plagiarize herself and put the thoughts in an argument article sometime. Most people were worried about what they weren't hearing and knowing, than about access to forbidden books in the French Enlightenment. Ronda consoled herself that there had been a black market, and the books got around. Why, posted Clear Story, a regular who always attached history to modern happenings, why aren't we more worried about current censorship? I've seen reports of a whistleblower on the internet who manages to know the most amazing things about current events and what's about to happen. This means the information's there and we're being denied it. Why isn't it available? Why can't we all know what's going on in the world? Anon 569 piped up with, "That guy is just making things up. Everyone's heard of him. He's the Scarlet Pumpernickel of the net." "You mean Scarlet Pimpernel," someone else suggested. "No, I said Scarlet Pumpernickel, and I mean it. There's no elegant Percy Blakeney freeing doomed aristos. He's a nerd, making things up to draw attention to himself." Claire Story argued against this. She pasted the full text of 3 of Ronda's message board posts. Thank God I don't post to anything that permanent these days, Ronda thought. These were old. They had happened. All gone. Cleo's story proved this point by point unintentionally. She demonstrated how George W. Bush had decimated the local emergency help and how step by step New Orleans had descended into a drowned pit because of it. Ronda remembered Hurricane Katrina and the horror inside as her prophecy had come true, even to the number of corpses found floating and the number of people who died in the Superdome. She had blurted out a list of historic houses that would be saved. At every point, she'd been irrefutably correct. At each of those points, though, Cleo's story assumed that this was insider knowledge. Thank God for rationalists. And that was The Wizardry of Jewish Women. I love showing pictures of my books, which was out some years ago, as you might guess. The last one I'm reading from, I've got a printout picture, but it's available in ebook at the moment and the paper is coming. So it is my new book from earlier this year that has been interfered with severely by bushfires and by COVID. It's science fiction set on a distant planet where, well, you'll hear all the where bits for yourself. That's Io. Grania's eyes discovered they could see through a telescope after all as she made out the craters. She looked closely at the actinic sphere, reddish and uncomfortable. It's so lonely, she said. Familiar, I would have thought, and Alphonse's hands copied his words and started acting familiar, creeping where they didn't belong. She couldn't do anything about it. Her position was too powerless. Grania retaliated verbally, hoping she could make Alphonse shy away. Io here is nothing like Io from Earth, she said. This solar system is entirely strange. In fact, you could hardly see Io from Earth, not using telescopes like this. It takes more than a name. Alphonse's hands paused, and Grania held her breath, hoping. Then he said with a touch of impatience, Io, the moon, who cares? His hands gently encircled her hips, and he leaned in closer. If you look carefully, you can see fumes. Fumes. Her mind was hazed by them, even without seeing. I spent an hour adjusting my telescope. It's precisely targeted. The image is perfect. You'll see faint plumes above several of the peaks. She'd forgotten that these old-style scopes were not automatic. Finally, something useful in this retro society. Grania had been so grateful at first because the 18th century revival had given her a place to hide. New series held itself aloof from techno worlds with their techno battles, but the world that took in so many refugees was not perfect, and Grania was beginning to discover the nature of some of those imperfections. There was the odd sunlight that left her eyes a little glazed, and those scuttling 12-legged spiders. The water was tinted and the untreated food was slow poison. Then there was Alphonse. Grania could do something temporary about Alphonse, even if the rest was beyond her control. She took a small step back onto the hem of her evening dress and stumbled onto the arch of his foot. Her arm took the scope with her. Alphonse cursed. He reached for his instrument and let her fall. The quiet man from dinner rescued her from an ignominious, though very useful, tumble. Everyone else was downstairs, drinking port or playing cards, pretending they lived in the 18th century, pretending that new series helped humankind with grace and not grudgingly. It'll take me all the time I have to find Io again and set her up before the eclipse. I'm so sorry, murmured Grania. I lost my balance. I'm truly not used to managing long skirts here. You technotypes are just not used to life in the real world, Alphonse cut. Would you like me to see her home? Asked the other man. You'll miss the eclipse. Alphonse's voice was an annoyed mutter. He flitted round his precious telescope with small, irritated movements. Restoring it to its position was taking his attention. Even his focus on Grania was diminished. There'll be other eclipses, her saviour replied, and it seems to me that Grania stumbled because she was tired. It's true, Grania lied. That was the light bit of Poison and Light. I hope I've got time to read the poison bit, which is not long, but interrupt me if I'm taking too long, please. Livia had once taken an off-world lover, long, long ago when she was learning how to arrange her life suitably. Recondite and bizarre, antiquated social customs, her lover had commented. That's a new series. Everything here is a veil covering nonsense. The comment had come the day before he'd shamed her in public. The day before she decided that ambition was more interesting than pretty lovers. She made a moue in the mirror. Her pale face with its white gold hair was haloed by white light, ready for the inevitable pre-dinner powder. That lover had called her an angel once. This was not a moment when she could lose herself in the past. The present was enough of a burden. Her husband was more than anyone should bear. As if responding to a cue, Frederick dipped his head around the door. "Dinner bell in 5 minutes, my dear," he said, chipper as an English country gentleman. Olivia tilted her head graciously in his direction, then stilled for the maid to powder her. Frederick disappeared. Olivia's lips thinned as she contemplated the options her various problems presented her. In her mind, she arranged the seating. She'd put Grania next to Josephine's husband. He was looking for a mistress, and Josephine was not tolerant of rivals. With any luck, the Earthwoman's body would be found in a ditch. That would delay the problem of losing the power she obtained from hosting Alphonse's dinner table. Alphonse would start seeking an official mistress all over again. He would waste vast hours at the spaceport hunting refugees. Olivia smiled at her image, sweetness radiating to the room. The maid twisted her hair too hard. Olivia's hand reached out in a slap. The maid cringed. "Time," Olivia snapped. "Almost 4, madam. Hurry up then. I want to be downstairs before the guests arrive." "Yes,
Gillian,
madam."
I'm sorry we have reached the end of time.
I've got 2 more sentences. I'll leave them because they don't make sense after interruption.
Okay,
So
go
everybody,
for
you
it.
only missed 2 sentences. Thank you. And I'm sorry I couldn't see the time check things because I can't read and see at the same time. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll go to Discord in case any of you want to actually chat.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's
a
the
lot.
readings, it's the odd channel.
Thank you. And thank you, technical people.
All right. Thank you.